Evelyn Plummer had always prided herself on her sharp wit, sharp tongue, and sharp observations. In her years on the cobbles of Weatherfield, she'd been a constant presence, a fixture of the local community, her humorous banter and no-nonsense attitude making her both an asset and a headache to those around her. But beneath the tough exterior, Evelyn had started to feel something she had long suppressed, the nagging feeling that her life lacked a true sense of purpose. It had been a strange week for Evelyn. The Christmas season had come and gone, but the festive goodwill hadn't quite made it to the Plummer household. Steve MacDonald's accidental destruction of her beloved backgammon set had left Evelyn seething. Roy Cropper had kindly gifted it to her, and she wasn't about to let some clumsy MacDonald ruin it without consequences. In her usual feisty manner, Evelyn fired off a letter to Steve, threatening him with small claims court over the £325 she claimed he owed her. Steve, naturally, was gobsmacked when he received the letter. How could Evelyn, always so full of sharp-tongued jabs and quick wit, actually want to go as far as to sue him over something so trivial? As the drama played out, Alia Nazir was brought in for legal advice. She found the whole situation amusing, especially when Evelyn confessed that she had written the letter herself, pretending to be a solicitor. The situation devolved further when Alia invited Evelyn to a criminal law lecture. It was clear that Evelyn, who had always been a formidable figure, had an aptitude for mischief. But was this where her future lay? It was a conversation with Roy Cropper that would set the wheels in motion for what could be the most unexpected turn in Evelyn's life. Roy, who had always seen potential in her, even when others saw her as nothing more than an eccentric old woman, gently suggested that Evelyn apply for a law degree. At first, Evelyn scoffed at the idea. Law school? At her age? What nonsense! But as she sat at home, watching yet another soap opera on TV, and wondering if the best years of her life were behind her, Evelyn began to consider it seriously. I might just be able to do something else, Roy, she said, more to herself than to anyone else. Roy, always the patient listener, simply nodded. You're never too old to learn, Evelyn. A few days later, Evelyn sat hunched over her computer, her fingers poised over the keys as she filled out the online application for university. The idea of returning to school, of spending years buried in books and lectures, seemed impossible, but Evelyn couldn't shake the thought. She had spent her life taking care of others, doling out advice, and making sure everyone around her followed the rules. But what about her? What did she want to do for herself? She confided in Tyrone Dobbs, her loyal but often bemused neighbor. I've done it, Tyrone, Evelyn said, showing him the application she had just submitted. I've applied to read law at university. Tyrone was speechless, his eyes wide with disbelief. Law, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Are you sure about this, Evelyn? You've never even taken a driving test. I'm serious. Evelyn snapped, her eyes flashing with a rare determination. Maybe it's time I did something with my life. The world's full of people with degrees and letters after their names. Why can't I be one of them? Tyrone didn't know what to say. He was genuinely proud of Evelyn for taking the leap. But he also couldn't help but feel she was in over her head. However, Evelyn was used to being underestimated. She had faced far worse situations and come out on top. This was just another challenge, and Evelyn was never one to back down from a challenge. A few days later, Evelyn received an email confirming that she had been invited for an interview for the law degree program. Her heart raced when she saw the message pop up in her inbox. The next step in her journey was ahead, but would she be ready for it? The morning of the interview arrived, and Evelyn was in front of the mirror, adjusting her outfit, unsure of what kind of impression she was about to make. A part of her still couldn't believe she was actually going to this interview. Was this really happening? What if they laugh at me? She muttered to herself, smoothing down her blouse. You'll do fine, Evelyn, Roy said from the kitchen doorway. He'd had come to wish her well before she left for the university. Evelyn managed a small smile. Thank you, Roy. You're a good friend. I don't know what I'd do without you. Roy's encouragement had been a steadying force in her life, and as she walked out of the house, her nerves were slightly calmed. But as she made her way into the university, the nerves crept back up. The moment she stepped into the interview room, Evelyn was met with the last person she expected, Marjorie Tavistock. The name rang a bell in Evelyn's head, but it wasn't until she locked eyes with Marjorie that the full horror of the situation hit her. Marjorie Tavistock was the very same woman Evelyn had impersonated not long ago. It had been a petty crime, but Evelyn had pretended to be Marjorie in order to gain access to some benefits that she didn't qualify for. Now, here was Marjorie herself, sitting across from Evelyn, the very person she had once been. Marjorie's expression faltered when she recognized Evelyn, and it didn't take long for Evelyn to realize that she had just walked right into a trap. Marjorie was now working at the university, and it wasn't long before the truth about Evelyn's past began to simmer just beneath the surface. Evelyn tried to remain calm, her heart pounding as the interview went on. The questions about her background, her motivations, and her reasons for wanting to pursue law came fast and furious. But all Evelyn could focus on was Marjorie's eyes, which seemed to bore into her soul, knowing exactly what she had done. By the end of the interview, Evelyn was sweating with anxiety. As she walked out of the room, her mind was in turmoil. Had she ruined her chances? Could she still pull this off that evening? As Evelyn sat in her living room, she replayed the events of the day in her mind. Roy had called to check in, and she had confessed that the interview hadn't gone well. "I'm afraid I've messed it all up, Roy," Evelyn said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Marjorie was there. She knows what I've done. Roy didn't flinch. "It's in the past, Evelyn. You've been honest with yourself, and that's what matters. Don't let one mistake define you." Evelyn paused, her face softening. Maybe Roy was right. The past was just that, the past. But she had come this far, and she wasn't about to let a minor setback ruin her dream. In the days that followed, Evelyn waited anxiously for the university's response. She thought about her future constantly, about whether she was truly ready for such a monumental change. Could she really become a law student at her age? Would she be able to keep up with the younger students? And most importantly, could she reconcile with her past actions? Then, one morning, the email came. She had been accepted into the law degree program. Evelyn could hardly believe it. Her hands shook as she read the message, the weight of it sinking in. She had done it. Evelyn Plummer, the woman who had spent her life making sarcastic remarks and shaking up the cobbles of Weatherfield, was about to start a new chapter of her life. She picked up the phone and called Roy immediately. "Roy, I got in," she said, her voice barely able to contain the excitement. Roy's voice on the other end of the line was filled with pride. "I knew you could do it, Evelyn. You've got a whole new world ahead of you." Evelyn smiled as she stared out the window. The sun was shining, and for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe it was never too late to start something new. Maybe, just maybe, Evelyn Plummer was about to prove to the world that age was just a number. And as she looked ahead, she couldn't help but feel that her best years might just be starting now.